All right, fight fans, we are back. Episode number 124 of The Neutral Corner. You guys had over an hour of news and notes in the first part. Now here in the second part, we're going to review the last 2 weeks of fights and then preview what's coming up this week. So let's get right into it. The review of the last 2 weeks. Saturday, May 19th, Elland Road Football Ground in Leeds, Yorkshire, UK. That's Josh Warrington's hometown, and the hometown boy scores a split decision win over Lee Selby, takes his IBF featherweight title. Selby was cut above the left eye in the second round and the right eye in the sixth round, both I think from headbutts. He fought well through those cuts, but they clearly affected him. Warrington is now 27-0 with 6 knockouts, no power at all, but he has a really, really tough style, comes forward, uses the head a lot of headbutts. He's cut 4 or 5 of his opponents now. So if you're going up against this guy, that's something you just have to game plan for. It's part of his style. I don't think he's ever lost a point or anything like that for an intentional foul, an intentional headbutt. I didn't see anything that looked egregious or dirty or anything like that. It's just the guy's style. Selby claimed that he had trouble making weight. He looked a little sapped in this fight, a little sapped. He said he's going to move up to 130 pounds now. And for Warrington, he's got a title at featherweight. That is a loaded division with a lot of possibilities. Also on the 19th at the MGM National Harbor in Oxon Hill, Maryland, talking about featherweights. Showtime opener, Gary Russell Jr. defends his WBC featherweight title against Joseph Diaz Jr. in a pretty good fight. This is a pretty good fight. Diaz had moments early on and really throughout the fight, but I felt halfway through that this fight was even. In the end, I scored at 116-112 for Russell. In the second half of the fight, Russell showed his class. He made adjustments. He won the second half of the fight. Again, Diaz had some moments down the stretch, but not like in the first half. And really what this came down to, man, Russell and his corner were able to make adjustments. And Diaz and his corner were not able to make adjustments. Now, down the stretch, there were little pieces of rounds where Diaz didn't do a lot of work. He didn't punch a lot. And a lot of people think that's just because he just didn't, wasn't part of his game plan, or he couldn't get punches off, whatever. It's because he was confused. It's because he was being outboxed. It's because he had a guy in there who had a little more craft, a lot more athleticism and speed, and Diaz just wasn't given the instructions he needed. He just needed to stay busy. I don't think that Russell could really hurt him. There wasn't enough power there. Diaz showed a pretty good chin. He showed a good chin so far in his career. He's pretty defensively responsible. I don't think he was used to getting hit as easily as Russell hit him with at times, but Russell would land a lot of pity pat, a lot of shoe shine. The thing Russell does, and look, Russell, boxing is the Russell family business. There's a bunch of them. They all box, right? Gary has been boxing since he was in diapers. And he knows that even if you're shoe shining a guy, that last punch at the end of that combination has to have a little steam on it, a little mustard on it to get your opponent's respect. And that last shoe shine, or I'm sorry, the last punch of that combination, when it has pop, that is what makes a fighter freeze up, because what happens is if you're the opponent, you see the shoe shine combination coming at you, you cover up. And it's not because you fear the shoe shine, it's because you fear that last shot. I shouldn't say fear, but you respect it. So you see the shoe shine coming, and instead of reacting, instead of trying to counter, you know that last shot's coming that has a little pop on it, and you don't like it. So you cover up, you clam up. You don't respond, you don't punch back, you don't counter as much. And that's what we saw from Diaz down the stretch. And his father, who runs his corner, who's done a fine job in his career up to this point, simply did not know how to make the adjustments. Diaz and his dad are wonderful, wonderful people. Tiffany and I, met them, saw them work out at the gym before. We did a piece in Boxing Monthly. You guys who follow me, you know that. You've seen the video interview that was part of that overall piece, that overall package, that story we did on him on my channel. You can go find it. Wonderful people. His dad's done an awesome job, especially for a guy that really didn't have any boxing background before his son got involved. They've done great. But that elite level, that next level to get it done against guys like Russell, they're going to need to, I'm not going to say make a complete change. I don't see Diaz doing that. I can't see Joseph Diaz kicking his dad to the curb. He's not built that way. Very close family. Crazy close family. But they could bring in a more experienced, true boxing guy as the head trainer, as a consultant, something. Bring in somebody. Imagine if Joseph Diaz started working with, let's say, a Robert Garcia or somebody like that, with his father still in the corner, but maybe as the assistant trainer, something like that. I really, really think that could help Diaz make adjustments, because they looked out of their element. And it wasn't really a difference in class, so to speak, although Russell is clearly a step ahead of Diaz right now. He is an elite featherweight. He's one of the more elite level fighters in the sport, Gary Russell is. Diaz could hang with him in terms of, Diaz is world class. I thought he proved that in this fight, but he couldn't make the adjustments. He didn't know what to do in there. And there were moments where he just kind of froze, didn't throw punches, because again, he respected those combinations coming back from Russell. He didn't know when they were coming, but he knew when they were coming, they'd be a problem. And look, Diaz will be back. He's got to make some changes on his team, though. Has to do it. If he doesn't do it, he's not going to be back. At least not at the elite level. Ain't going to happen. For Russell, this was his best win. As I said, Diaz is legit. Former Olympian, just like Russell. Great amateur career. Has had a very good, solid career so far as a pro. Earned this title shot. Legitimately earned this title shot. He was ready as he was ever going to be with his father for this title shot. Legit. And Russell clearly won this fight. I thought he clearly won 8 rounds. Some people had this fight wider than that. I don't know if you could give more than 8 or 9 rounds to Russell. On the other side, I don't know if you could give Diaz any more than 4 or 5 rounds. It was a clear win for Russell. The question is, when is this guy going to be back? He's clearly an elite level talent. He's one of the best little guys in the business. He's probably the best featherweight in the world right now. Think about it. If he fought, let's see, Frampton, if he fought Santa Cruz, maybe some of you guys would favor those fighters over Russell, but admit, it'd almost be 50-50. Me, I'd probably favor Russell to beat those guys right now. I think he's the best featherweight probably in the world. Lomachenko could make featherweight right now if he really wanted to. So if if Lomachenko moved back down to 126 right now for some reason, he's the best featherweight in the world. But since Lomachenko left and he's already given up his 130-pound title, he's going to defend he's staying at lightweight. He wants to defend that title. Gary Russell's probably the best featherweight in the world right now, man. Is he going to fight again this year? He fought once in 15, once in 16, once in 17. Is he going to do the same damn thing this year? I really hope not. Why kill his momentum, man? Best win of your career. Get your ass back in the ring before the end of the summer. I'm talking somewhere in August. And then come back again November, December. Fight 3 times this year. Get active. Make some damn money. He made money in this fight. He made over $1 million. But he could work his way into some bigger fights, especially if you're willing to stamp his passport and go over to the UK. Josh Warrington, hello. Does anyone think Warrington would at all be that competitive with Russell? More competitive than Diaz? I don't think so. I think Russell could go over there, unify titles, make some easy money, but he's got to get busy. This was the opener of a Showtime card, as I said. In the main event, it flipped over to the Air Canada Centre in Toronto, Ontario. Adonis, Stevenson, and Badou Jack fight to a majority draw. Now, this fight started out as absolute shit. For the first 6 rounds, what I saw was a guy in Adonis Stevenson that was cocking his left hand, looking for one punch, but his feet moving through mud. He looked really, really slow on his feet. Did not look that explosive in general. And I thought he was telegraphing the left hand all day. In any defensively responsible, tactical type fighter, which Jack could see those left hands coming. And all Jack did for the first 6 rounds was avoid the straight left hand from Adonis Stevenson. Neither man did a whole lot, but Adonis did just a little more because he was the one actually throwing punches. They were all blocked or he missed, but at least he was throwing punches. So basically, the first 6 rounds of this fight was a sparring session where one guy was just giving the other guy work. It almost looked like an offensive drill. So sometimes in sparring, you might have one guy playing offense, one guy playing defense. And you tell fighter A, look, I want you to get some shots off. Fighter B, I want you to shell up and try to move and roll with these shots. If you punch back, just move your guy. Punch him or jab him to the chest or hit him to the shoulders and spin off, move him to get some distance. But I don't want you shooting upstairs. Work the body and work the chest, but I want you just to work on defense. That almost looked like what this was, the first 6 rounds. Those are drills you do with kids in the gym. That's what I saw. But 6th, 7th round, Jack started to really, really find his range and find his rhythm. And I don't know if it's that this was part of his plan or what. I get it that Stevenson had such a layoff, had only fought like a round or 2 in the last 2 years. I understand taking him to the deep waters, but you're in this guy's hometown. You got to start sooner. You got to do something starting in the 3rd or 4th round. You can't give a dude 5, maybe 6 of the first 6 rounds. Anyway, Jack gets it going in the second half of the fight. Had Stevenson buzzed, and it almost looked like he was exhausted at different times. The problem is a lot of it from Jack was one punch at a time. He'd have little moments, but he would never follow up on them. He'd have a little moment. You'd see Stevenson visibly. You could see that he was bothered. Maybe he was a little buzzed. His legs were a little shaky. He looked tired. His mouth was open. He was huffing and puffing. Jack was doing good work, but he wasn't doing it consistently enough. You got a guy hurt. You're in his hometown. Put a stamp on it, man. Badly hurt the dude. Make it look like a 10-8 round. If you can't drop the guy because he's got a good chin, and Stevenson showed a pretty good chin in this fight, although Badou Jack has never been a very, very big puncher. But if you're Adonis Stevenson and you're trying to reserve your gas tank for the final rounds, and that's what I saw Stevenson doing really through rounds 7 through 10, to me, he just took his foot off the gas pedal because he didn't feel like he had the energy to fight hard all 12 rounds. And he knew he had built such a lead. I think he let off the gas pedal and let Jack do some work. Jack did do some good work, but he just wasn't following up. He wasn't being a killer in there. He wasn't trying to be the boss in there. And as a result, he pretty much gave this fight away, man. Stevenson came back. I don't know if it was the 10th or the 11th round. I can't remember. It's been a couple weeks. But he landed a very good counter punch to the body. I think it was a straight left hand right to the solar plex that visibly hurt Jack. I mean, he almost went down. His knees kind of almost buckled. He definitely had a visible reaction to it. And because of that, I believe it was the 11th round, Stevenson got that round. It was enough to get that round, and that's what got him the draw in this fight. If he doesn't land that punch, Jack probably wins this fight by a point on 2 of the cards and by 2 points on 1 of the cards, and he wins a unanimous decision. And he walks away with the WBC Light Heavyweight Championship. But Stevenson landed that one shot. He realized he wasn't getting it done upstairs. He went to the body. It was a smart tactic by him, and it saved his title for him for another night. So in this fight, honestly, one man looked old and ready to go. The other guy looked either unwilling or unable to fully take advantage of that. I can't tell which one. I think he was willing. I think he was simply unable to. Now, some members of the media, and look, the second half of the fight had some action. It did, and it was entertaining down the stretch. It was. This fight started as shit, but it ended up being a good. The last 6 rounds of this fight were good, entertaining stuff, and it was mostly because Jack was making the fight competitive and actually landing punches on Stevenson, and Stevenson was being forced to survive and fight back, and it made it fun. It was also because we had just seen 6 rounds of pure shit. So anything was better than that. So I think some people graded this fight on a curve. And there were members of the media And I'm not just talking about like wannabe media or amateur media, part-time media, whatever. I'm talking about full-time paid media that works full-time for certain outlets that you guys know and love and respect. We're calling this a great fight, a fight of the year candidate, one of the best fights they've ever seen live. That is absolutely ridiculous. This wasn't in the top 5 of best fights we've seen so far this year. Valdez Quigg, Wilder Ortiz, Rungvisai Estrada. Those are 3 off the top of my head. Lomachenko Linares, there's 4. We have seen at least, I know there's a couple more I'm forgetting right now off the top of my head, that were light years better than this, okay? And yes, I'm not a big fan of Adonis Stevenson, although I do like Badou Jack. And it's not that I dislike Stevenson as a fighter. I dislike him as a human being. I think he's a vile piece of shit. But he can be entertaining as a fighter. When he fights, I watch. It's just this fight wasn't that damn good. Some of you guys were talking about this being the fight of the year. So, I don't know. You're getting a little too ahead of yourselves. This fight was a pay-per-view in Canada, which I'm sorry, Canadians. That's just terrible. I don't know what to say about that. It peaked at around 600,000 viewers on Showtime in the United States. All things considered, this is a light heavyweight championship fight. A former fighter of the year 5 years ago, Stevenson was the Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year and won the, at that time, lineal light heavyweight championship, although in my opinion it was badly perverted. Chad Dawson had moved down in weight and got beaten up by Andre Ward, who doesn't beat people up, and lost that fight, was knocked out in sparring for that fight, knocked out by Ward, comes back up in weight, gets knocked out by Stevenson. Perfect timing for Stevenson, took advantage. I totally get that. More power to him. But was he the real light heavyweight championship? No. Sergey Kovalev became the legitimate light heavyweight champion, and then Andre Ward did in their rematch. Love it or hate it, the way he won it. He won that second fight, and he became the light heavyweight champion. Adonis Stevenson, he's had a title, but he's held that title hostage. And it's crazy to think a guy who was the fighter of the year in 2013 with so much potential, 5 years later is defending his title, I think for the 9th time. And it does a 600,000 rating on Showtime. Adrian Broner recently had a fight. Adrian Broner's a has-been, right? Almost a never was, but a has-been. Faded. Nowhere near what he once was at his best. And he did a much better rating than that in a fight that was not nearly as important as this fight was. So how the mighty, the once mighty, the briefly mighty have fallen. Badou Jack bitched about the draw. I believe this was his 4th draw. He said it was because the judges don't like Floyd Mayweather, who promotes him. That is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Badou Jack has nobody to blame but himself. He never empties the gas tank. He does just enough to make fights close and competitive, which is good, but he doesn't do enough to win it. And he thinks that, look, Floyd Mayweather won fights that way. The difference is Floyd would put his stamp on a round when he had to. What Floyd would do in a lot of fights, he might give away the first round or two, but he got going in that 3rd, 4th round. And some of the fights where he was actually fighting someone with a pulse, he had them, it took him a little longer to figure them out. Maybe it took until the 6th, 7th, or it was competitive down the stretch. But Floyd, he'd give away the first couple rounds to see what you were working with, and then he'd start kicking into gear. And there were times where Floyd would win round by round. He would do just enough to win a round, but he'd clearly win it. He'd land a big, big shot. Kind of the way Stevenson won that 11th round with that power punch, right? That body shot that bothered Jack. That was a close round that could have went either way up until that point. In fact, Jack might have been winning it at that point. I think he was. But not crazy. He wasn't winning it so dominantly that one big punch from Stevenson couldn't steal it. Floyd would win rounds like that in some fights, but that was Floyd Mayweather. Badou Jack ain't Floyd Mayweather. He's promoted by him, but he ain't going to win fights the way Floyd did. He ain't the same type of fighter. So I just, for Badou Jack, bitch and moan and make excuses, but dude, this is 100% on you. You gave the damn fight away. It was there to be had. any of the top 5 light heavyweights in the world would have clearly defeated these two fighters on that night. Period. Speaking of top 5 light heavyweights, Alexander Gvozdyk is supposed to be next. He's in line for the WBC shot against Adonis Stevenson. Now, Gvozdyk has been dropped before, right? He's been buzzed. He can be hit. He's not impossible to hit, especially a southpaw throwing bombs with the left hand. So it'd be interesting. But in terms of craft, in terms of footwork, in terms of athleticism, I think Gvozdyk is the right guy. Is he the best light heavyweight in the world? No. Look, Dmitry Bivol, Sergey Kovalev, and probably even Artur Beterbiev, but I'm going to leave him out of that conversation. Bivol and Kovalev brutally knock out Adonis Stevenson within 4 or 5 rounds. Brutally. Kovalev might decide to just punish him for 9 or 10 rounds before finally getting rid of him. But those fights aren't even competitive at this point. Beterbiev, I think I'd favor to beat Stevenson. I'd favor Gvozdyk to beat him. But it's going to be interesting, and Stevenson has a legitimate shot, especially if he stays more active and is in better shape next time. However, this guy has had mandatories before. Edidir Alvarez, who's about to fight Kovalev, the man Stevenson shamelessly ducked. Alvarez was mandatory for years, and Stevenson didn't fight him. Well, I think the WBC is sick of the criticism, and also they've got a different animal here in Gvozdyk. He is managed by Egis Klimas, and Klimas has said straight up, we will not accept step-aside money. We want the fight with Stevenson next. Period. End of story. Now, some people have said that this fight between Stevenson and Jack was so good, and the Showtime crew was talking about, we need a rematch. I don't think anybody outside of Adonis Stevenson and Badou Jack fans, all 600,000 of them who tuned in for this fight around the world, want to see it. I think people would be much more interested in seeing Jack fight somebody in the lower top 10, because that's probably around where he is. He's on the bubble of the lower top 10 of this division, and people would rather see Stevenson fight Gvozdyk. And I favor Gvozdyk to win that fight, and then the WBC title will move over to ESPN. The boys at Showtime don't want that shit, and that's why they're calling for a rematch between Stevenson and Jack. I don't blame them, but guys, nobody wants to see that shit again. Good quality, fun fight. Don't need to see it again. Let's have both guys move on. Look, if Stevenson beats Gvozdyk, knocks him out, if Jack gets back in the ring and wins and beats somebody, then let's see a rematch. Until then, I don't need to see it. Let's move on. Speaking of moving on, let's move on to the following day, Sunday, May 20th, at the Ota City General Gymnasium in Tokyo. Hekkie Budler from South Africa wins a unanimous decision over Ryuichi Taguchi, takes his IBF and WBA junior flyweight titles. He wins by the scores of 114-113 3 times. And I think Butler was dropped in the 12th round. So really all 3 judges had this 7 rounds to 5 for him. Butler started well, won the first half of the fight, but Taguchi came back in the second half, as I mentioned, dropped Butler in the 12th. But Butler clearly did more. He won this fight in a minor upset. Actually, this might have been a more than minor upset. I favored Taguchi in this fight. A couple of you guys on YouTube commented on that last episode of TNC and said that Butler was no joke, and you were right. You guys called it, man. Look, coming in, here's why I thought this would be a clear win for Taguchi. I didn't think it was going to be a complete whitewash, but I favored him to win, and I favored him to win clearly. Taguchi hadn't lost since going the distance with Naoya and Inoue back in 2013. And we all saw what Inoue just did recently, right? I'll talk about that in a second. But this dude went the distance with Inoue in 2013. So he had shown a good set of whiskers, and he could go rounds against elite-level opposition. Now, Inoue 5 years ago wasn't quite developed as the fighter he is now, but the dude still hit like a truck for that weight. Talking 108 pounds, right? Butler from South Africa, as I mentioned before, was coming into this fight off a loss. It was a close loss, but he was dropped in that fight. He went to the Philippines in September, dropped in that fight, and he had lost 2 of his last 4 coming in. He was also the shorter guy. He's listed as 5'3". Taguchi's listed 5'6". I don't know if it was quite a complete 3-inch height difference. It looked more like an inch or two, but still, definitely the smaller guy punching up. So I favor Taguchi, and this is absolutely an upset. Good for Budler, man. He's not just a titleist. He's got 2 titles now in that division, and he's set up for major, major business. He has earned the right to go back to South Africa, defend those titles there. Look, his last 2 fights have been in the Philippines and Japan. He stamped his passport. He went out there and did the hard work. And now go home, defend those titles there. I don't know how well received he's going to be in South Africa with all the issues they have going on there right now. There's some crazy shit going over there right now. The media in the United States, for some reason, isn't talking about it. But I would have to think that him being from that country and being a champion, you know, there'd have to be somewhat of an audience there for him. We'll see what happens. Friday, May 25th, in the same arena, the Oda City General Gymnasium in Tokyo, on the ESPN Plus app, early Friday morning on May 25th. Naoya Inoue scores a TKO 1 win over Jamie McDonnell, wins his WBA Bantamweight title. This is his first fight at Bantamweight. Now look, everybody predicted Inoue to win this fight. I don't know anyone who picked McDonnell to win. I thought that McDonnell would go rounds, though. I did think Inoue would stop him, but I thought this would go into the second half of the fight. And I thought that it'd be pretty clear. I thought it would be a very dominating performance from Inoue. But I thought McDonnell would win a couple rounds early on, or at least be competitive. For this guy to get blown out in the first round, and it wasn't like some lucky punch that just caught him cold. This was just a complete annihilation. It was pretty damn impressive. Really, really impressive. This is the 3rd world title in 3 different divisions for the monster, Naoya Inoue, in 16 pro bouts. And some of you had said, I think on Twitter, were saying, oh, but this was the WBA regular title, so this doesn't count. Look, I get you. Here's the thing with the WBA. They throw out titles like candy. And their super title, quote unquote, is their real title and the best title they have and blah, blah, blah. They're inconsistent with their own rules, guys. Sometimes their super champion is trash and their regular champion is the better fighter. Sometimes the interim guy is the better fighter. Sometimes their current super champion used to be the regular champion, used to be the interim champion. They bump guys up so they can get more sanctioning fees. So you have to look into the title. You have to look at what's behind the title. And say what you will, Jamie McDonnell came into this fight with his WBA regular title. He had defended it 6 straight times. So he was clearly a top bantamweight. So I can't even think in my mind right now who is the WBA super bantamweight champion is. I can't remember the name. But either way, 6 title defenses coming in. McDonnell looked pretty good in those defenses. This is an amazing performance from Inoue in his first fight in the new division. Give the guy some damn credit. And I get it. Not all titles are created equally. But people talk about Adrian Broner, 4-division titleist. Look at the 4 guys he beat for those titles. They're pretty much on the level, maybe even a level below Jamie McDonnell, some of them. Let's be honest. They certainly didn't have 6 title defenses coming in. So I give Naoya Inoue credit here. I give McDonnell credit for going on the road and defending his title. But he looked like a walking zombie at the weigh-in. And it showed in his performance. And I think people that are saying now Inoue is pound for pound number 1 or number 2 or number 3, you're getting a little ahead of yourself. He was fighting a skeleton. Great performance. I'm not taking anything away from the guy. It's technically the 3rd title in 16 pro fights. You know, Lomachenko just got his 3rd world title in 12 fights. So not that far off from Lomachenko, although Lomachenko's opposition is far superior to anyone Inoue has fought yet. But let's pump the brakes a little bit. He was fighting a skeleton with boxing gloves on in this fight. Obviously, McDonnell's going to move up to 122 pounds. I don't know how the hell he made 118 for so long. He's really a featherweight. I don't know how the hell this guy gets down in weight like that. And when he gets down, if he does eventually move up to 126, he's going to have problems fighting the elite level fighters there. But I do think he'll make some good noise at 122. He's just done at 118. Inoue is now going to jump into the World Boxing Super Series tournament. He's got to be the favorite to win it all, right? But again, don't put too much into this performance. Look at everything the guy has done in recent fights. There are some flaws there. He's clearly improving and getting better. And he might be better at 118 than he's been at any weight before this, which is scary as hell for everyone in the bantamweight division. But on paper, you got to favor the guy. But do I think he's going to go out there and annihilate everyone in one round in the tournament? No. No, I don't think that. I think they're going to be competitive fights. But we're going to find out just how well he truly wears 118 pounds as he goes through that tournament. Also on that card, Ken Shiro scores a KO2 win over Mexican Ganigan Lopez. This was the third defense of his WBC junior flyweight title. This was actually a rematch. He beat Lopez via split decision last May to win the title. So now Shiro is 13-0 with 7 knockouts. And Naoya Inoue's younger brother, Takuma Inoue, won a KO1 on the undercard to improve to 11-0. He is also at bantamweight as well. For those of you who want to ask, I'm going to stop you before you even go there. No, the Inoue brothers will not fight each other. So don't even start that shit. Not happening. Saturday, May 26th in Canada, in Quebec City, David Lemieux scores a unanimous decision over a cab driver. He came in a couple pounds heavy. I think it was 162 at the weigh-in. Look, Lemieux likes to eat. Or Lemieux. Sorry. David Lemieux. He likes to eat. He eats a lot of crepes. He likes to sip on the champagne. He likes to drink a little wine. He likes to eat, right? That was my horrible French accent. I promise I'll never do that again, okay? But dude likes to eat. He's got a big midsection. I don't know how the hell he's been making 160. Not going to be very effective at 168. Not that that's a deep division right now, but he's probably going to have to move up in weight, and he said he was going to at super middleweight. In the first part of this episode, in the news and notes, I talked about all the Canelo and Golovkin drama, right? Canelo could come back. He could do a tune-up fight against Spike O'Sullivan. That's probably who he's going to fight. I know Oscar's saying, we're talking to Charlo. We're talking to Jacobs. Right. You're going to come off a layoff and fight one of those guys. They're killers of the division. No. You're going to come back and fight Spike O'Sullivan. Don't count out David Lemieux in that fight. My thing is, if you're Team Canelo, if you feel a little heavy and you don't want to burn all the way down to 160, you can fight Lemieux at a super middleweight catch weight of like 163, 164 pounds. You could go in there, get some work in. If you feel you can make 160, you fight Spike O'Sullivan. I'll tell you this much, though. Lemieux, he likes to eat, but he also likes to punch. He can eat real good. He can punch real good. And a couple extra pounds on him where he's not killing himself to make weight, he'll be dangerous against Canelo coming off a layoff. So I think, yeah, is it possible he could fight Canelo at some kind of Super Canelo catchweight or something? Possible. But I think it's much more likely we see Canelo against a Spike O'Sullivan at 160 pounds. For Lemieux, I don't know what he's going to do here. Right now, World Boxing Super Series, the final for the super middleweight division is going to be later this year. You got Benavidez right now, David Benavidez, in that contract dispute between Samson Boxing and Top Rank. You got Gilberto Ramirez, who fights with Top Rank. Lemieux is with Golden Boy. Can Golden Boy and Top Rank do business together? I think it's possible. So I don't know. He's going to have options, but I don't know how well he's going to do at 168, man. At a catch weight of like 163, 164, yeah. But at 168 against some of those guys, look, David Benavidez, Zurdo Ramirez, they would make David Lemieux look like a midget. They're so much bigger than him. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, Later that day, here in the USA, at the Save Mart Arena in Fresno, California, back to the ESPN Plus app we go. In the main event, Jerwin Ancajas scores a unanimous decision over fellow Filipino Jonas Sultan via wide unanimous decision. Oh, wait. I said unanimous decision twice. See? Stupid. I wrote a unanimous decision twice in my notes, and I read it straight off the notes, and that's why it sounded like shit, guys. Sorry. Ancajas scores a unanimous decision over Sultan. This was the 5th defense of his IBF Super Flyweight title. The first time two Filipinos had fought each other in a title fight in almost a century. They're real superstitious about that. They don't like fighting. Filipinos don't like fighting other Filipino champions. It's a superstition. It's also kind of a respect thing they have. They don't like doing it. But this wasn't a very good fight. It was, I guess, worth $5 for your ESPN Plus app fee for the month of May. I guess $5, but I don't even know if it was worth $5. Not a very good fight. Ancajas gets the win, though, and, wide, dominant win for him. Cool. But again, we got to hear the references to Manny Pacquiao because, all Filipino people are the exact same. I got to hear these references to Pacquiao. They're both southpaws. They both hit hard. Does Ancajas really hit that hard? No, he doesn't. He scored some exciting knockout wins, but that was more about styles making fights. If he hit like a truck, if he hit like a young Manny Pacquiao before moving up to the welterweight division, before even moving up to the featherweight division, he would have knocked this guy out. He didn't do it. The comparisons to Pacquiao are every bit as ridiculous as the comparisons we got to hear about Ryan Garcia being the next Oscar de la Hoya. Those comparisons are stupid. They don't make sense. It's another lazy comparison. I don't like it. But these Ancajas to Pacquiao comparisons are every bit as stupid. Speaking of Ryan Garcia, real quick side note. He averaged 280,000 viewers on ESPN for that last fight at StubHub Center. So a lot of people on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff. And he did a decent crowd there at the StubHub Center, all things considered, but he didn't even break 300,000 viewers. So if Instagram followers, if all of them were legit and they weren't half bought, because you could buy Instagram followers now, just like you could buy YouTube subscriptions and you could buy Twitter followers. There are services that do that now, and half of the dudes, maybe not half, but several 100,000 of those Instagram followers, I think, were bought, because if they were real and you got almost 1 million people following you on Instagram, how were not even 300,000 of them watching you on ESPN? Doesn't quite add up. I don't know. Something missing there. Anyway, all right. Back to this card in Fresno. In the co-main, Khalid Yafai scores a win over David Carmona. Third defense of his WBA Super Flyweight title. It was a 7th round retirement. Carmona does not come out for the 8th round. Carmona came into this fight heavy. He's now lost 4 of his last 5. Just seems to be fading. This is the first time Yafai fought outside the UK. Good performance by him. Good quality performance. So look, both these guys are in the Super Flyweight division. Khalid Yafai, Jerwin Ancajas. Both of them defended their Super Flyweight titles. We're going to see them fight next, right? They both fought on the ESPN Plus app, right? Wrong. This is a major cock tease. These two guys are not likely to fight each other anytime soon. They should, in a perfect world, they would fight next. They both fought on the same damn card. Why wouldn't you do that? But nothing from their promotions or management has stated that that's going to happen, which is a real freaking shame. And as I said before, a major cock tease. Now, also Saturday, May 26th, there was some other action at the Beau Rivage Resort and Casino in Biloxi, Mississippi, a town that we drove not through but by on our drive, Tiffany and I, out here to Atlanta from Los Angeles. Tugstsogt, King Tug Nyambayar, I know I butchered that name. Oh, man, improved to 9-0 with 9 knockouts with a KO3 win over Oscar Escandon. He dropped Oscar twice in the second, twice in the third, and I want to say he dropped him Was it 5 times? No, it was 4 times. Okay, it was 4. Yeah, twice in the second, twice in the third. And I get it, styles make fights. But Eskandon has gone rounds with good fighters. He lasted 7 rounds with Gary Russell Jr. last May. In Gary Russell Jr.'s annual fight last year. Eskandon took him 7 rounds. Okay, so for this Nyambayar guy to take him out in 3 rounds and drop him 4 times in the process, that's impressive, man. That's impressive. Eskandon knows how to handle himself in the ring. He's a seasoned professional prize fighter. So really, really good breakout performance here for King Tug, PBC and FS1. He's ready to contend against anybody in the top 10 right now, I'd say, in the featherweight division. Is he ready to contend for a title? I don't know if I'd make that jump. But would I call Eskandon a top 10 featherweight? No, I wouldn't. Perennial contender at this point. Good, solid, top 15 probably. But let's get King Tug in there against a guy who isn't coming off a loss, a guy who's in the top 10 of the division. Let's see how he does in that fight. Maybe some sort of mandatory eliminator type position, type of fight. Then he can challenge for a title. If he can do that, I mean, this dude, he's ready to probably challenge for a title by the end of this year. Seriously, he's there already. Also on this card, Brooklyn Dominican Argenis Mendez scores a unanimous decision over Eddie Ramirez, who I believe is out of the Chicago area. He was dropped 5 times in this fight. He was down in the second, the third, and twice in the fifth. Okay, so he was down 4 times too. Why wasn't this fight stopped after the 5th round by Ramirez's corner? I don't see why this fight was continuing. You look at the main event, Oscar Eskandon dropped 4 times and was out of there. For Ramirez, he won, or didn't win. He got up, but you're dropped in consecutive rounds. You dropped twice in the 5th round. I don't see why he went out there for 5 more rounds in a fight you can't possibly win. Ramirez is not known as a puncher. You're down, 4,000 points on the cards going into the 6th round. I just don't see why his corner didn't stop the fight at that point. But either way, Mendez gets in 10 rounds, scores a big win. That's it with all the action over the last 2 weeks, guys. Man, whew, it was a breathful. We don't have a whole hell of a lot going on this week, but I will go ahead and preview it anyway coming up. Friday, June 1st from Los Angeles, my former home. Just a week ago, I called that place home. LA Fight Club is back from Golden Boy Promotions from downtown LA. The Belasco Theater it was about 2.5 miles from my place in Koreatown. And those Belasco cards were always a lot of fun. They're bringing LA Fight Club back for another edition. It airs live on Estrella TV in Spanish language, and then it will stream live on Ring TV as well. And Saturday, June 2nd, from the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, New Jersey, on CBS Sports Network, Real Deal Boxing from Evander Holyfield. They're putting on a card. In the main event, a Liberian-born fighter who is now based out of Providence, Rhode Island, Toka Khan Clary, is taking on Mexican fighter Emmanuel Dominguez. 10-rounder, featherweights. Clary is 25 years old. He's a southpaw, 24-1 with 17 knockouts. He only has that 1 loss, but he was KO'd in that loss in the 1st round back in 2016. So he's still kind of on a rebound from that. Seems fully recovered. Let's see. Dominguez is 24, 22-6 with 2 draws, 14 knockouts. Out of his 6 losses, he was only KO'd once, although this is his first bout outside of the USA. So on paper, it looks like Dominguez can go rounds. It looks like Clary needs those rounds. And both of these guys can be stopped, but Dominguez has showed a better chin so far. As I mentioned, only KO'd once in those 6 losses. But these guys who have never fought in America, who have fought mostly down in Mexico or Latin America, sometimes you don't know what to expect, man. Sometimes you don't know what to expect. So that's on CBS Sports Network from Real Deal Promotions. That's it this week, man. We got some more stuff coming up later in June. Right now, the schedule's a little dead. We're entering the summer, but we've got a lot of things happening. It's not going to be your typical summer. I think that HBO is going to continue to be shit. Obviously, they don't have anything on the schedule. But with the ESPN deal with Top Rank, and PBC is going to have some stuff, Showtime's going to have some stuff. We've got some stuff to look forward to in the next couple months, guys. All right, that's it for this edition of The Neutral Corner, episode 124. Please get over to Apple Podcast, subscribe, like us, give us a rating. Please, it helps me a lot. All right, tell your peeps. All right, I'll see you at the fights.